The Dog and His Reflection. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between green hills and dense forests, there lived a hungry dog. He was a sleek, brown dog with a shiny coat and a friendly disposition. The dog spent most of his days wandering the village, playing with the children, and looking for food scraps that might fall from the market stalls. He was always on the lookout for something tasty to eat. One day, after a long afternoon of running around and exploring the village, the dog found himself feeling particularly hungry. He had scoured every corner of the village and couldn't find any food. He was tired and thirsty, so he wandered down a path that led to a little stream that ran through the village. The dog was hoping to find a cool drink of water to ease his thirst. As he reached the stream, he leaned over to take a drink. The water was clear and fresh, and as he lapped it up, he suddenly noticed something unusual. In the calm water, the dog could see his reflection staring back at him. But there was something else in the reflection too. A large, juicy bone lying in the water, right next to his image. The dog's eyes widened with excitement. What a lucky day, he thought. A bone. And it's so big and tasty looking. I must have it. The dog's mouth watered at the sight of the bone. He had never seen anything like it before. It was just perfect, fat and meaty, with a delicious, tender morsel at the end. The dog immediately began to think about how wonderful it would be to gnaw on that bone, to sink his teeth into it, and to enjoy a meal like no other. But then a thought struck him. He was staring at the reflection of the bone, which of course belonged to his reflection. The dog didn't realize it, but he thought it was a real bone lying in the water. He saw the bone as part of his own image, and his desire for it grew stronger. Without thinking twice, the dog decided that he must take that bone from the other dog in the water. After all, he reasoned, if the other dog had a bone, why shouldn't he have it? And if the other dog wouldn't give it to him willingly, he could simply snatch it away. The dog growled softly, not realizing he was growling at his own reflection, and with a sudden leap, he lunged at the bone in the water. His teeth snapped in midair, but just as quickly, the bone he was reaching for disappeared from his grasp. His heart sank as he realized that there was no real bone, only the reflection of the bone he had seen in the water. But that wasn't the worst part. As the dog lunged, he lost his balance and fell into the stream with a splash. The water splashed around him, drenching his fur and making the dog feel even more embarrassed. Now, not only had he failed to grab the bone, but he was wet and cold as well. As he paddled back to the edge of the stream, the dog looked around in confusion. The bone, of course, was still nowhere to be found. He realized, to his dismay, that he had been tricked by his own reflection. The bone he had seen was never real. It had been nothing more than an illusion. Feeling foolish and embarrassed, the dog climbed out of the stream, shaking the water from his fur. He sat on the bank and stared at his reflection in the still water, but this time, he understood what had happened. The bone wasn't real, and his greed and desire for more had caused him to lose what he had already had: a full belly from his earlier meals and a happy day in the village. The dog sighed deeply, his tail drooping. He had let his desire for something more cloud his judgment, and in the end, he had lost both the bone and his dignity. If only he had been content with what he had, he thought. The dog, now wiser from his experience, turned away from the stream and began to walk home. He had learned a valuable lesson that day. Sometimes greed and desire for things we don't have can cause us to lose what we already possess. From that day on, the dog was careful not to let his wants lead him into foolish decisions. He enjoyed what he had and was no longer fooled by the illusion of things that weren't real. And so, the dog lived happily ever after, content with the simple pleasures of his life. The end. Moral of the story **. This story teaches us that greed and envy can lead us to make foolish choices. The dog's desire for something he didn't have caused him to lose everything, including what he already had. Sometimes it is better to be content with what we have than to chase after illusions that might cause us to lose even more.